About halfway down the Gulf Coast of Florida, they call it the Sun Coast, and rightly, lies the delightful Sarasota vacation area. Whatever your water sport preference, you'll find it here. Boating, swimming, water skiing, and of course, fishing, which could very well begin right here at Municipal Pier. For the sun worshippers, however, there are miles and miles of clean white sand beaches. And pools, such as the famous one at Lido Beach. In fact, from Longboat Key on the north to Minnesota Key on the south, and counting the many favorite swimming spots in between, at Venice, Nokomis, Casey Key, and Lido, there are some 35 miles of magnificent beaches to please the most dedicated fans of sun and surf. After swimming, chow's on. Come and get it. While some cater to those hearty appetites by slaving over a hot barbecue, they also serve who only stand and cast the shoreline to provide the tasty fresh fish fillets for this kind of open-air dining. But for the men who go down to the sea in ships, small ships, there are fishing camps, boat liveries, launching ramps, and marinas galore, including this triple-decker. Strictly ultra-modern, even to the fork truck that picks them up and lays them down, but gently, on the automatic launching ramp. Easy does it. And so the machine age finally comes to boating. It used to be quite a thing to put in and take out, hard on the back and harder on Pop's nerves. This makes it a push-button operation. Plus that, of course, you can gas up, ice up, and stock up on seagoing type vittles, all in one operation. One-stop shopping, marine style. But you don't necessarily have to head for deep water to catch fish hereabouts. You're apt to find fishermen on any convenient piece of real estate, including bridge, causeway, jetty, and sand spit, within casting distance or dunking distance of freshwater or salt. It's a friendly kind of angling, this fishing off bridges, or maybe the word for it is folksy, because everybody's a good neighbor. Economical, too, because the lady with the cane pole is likely to do just as well as the gent with the fancy $100 spinning outfit, maybe better. And sometimes the suspense about what's on the other end of that line can be terrific. And she has herself a mullet, good bait fish, and also a good food fish. Techniques vary. Now this is jigging, and every little movement has a meaning all its own. Another thing, bridge fishermen go in for solid comfort. They're liable to come equipped with anything from a reclining chair to a chaise lounge. Very relaxing, except you do have to stay somewhat alert to avoid being hit by a flying mackerel. And this is a mackerel, Spanish mackerel, a very common species and about average size. And this must be Ladies' Day on the bridge. They seem to be catching all the fish. Not all of the fishing is of the hook and line, rod and reel variety. The mullet is one that's netted commercially for the market and is considered to be about the best bait fish around. Nice cast. And not a bad haul either. Mullet travel in schools, and it's these schools of mullet, by the way, that attract the big game fish in close to shore. So the lowly mullet is pretty important after all. Down the road a piece, US 41 that is, but still in the heart of Sarasota County, is the namesake of that famous Mediterranean city with the canals. But to the true fisherman, the waterways of Venice, USA are much more interesting with some real hot spots. Among them are the famous Venice jetties, twin pilings of coral, shell-packed granite, and iron casements that project several hundred feet out into the Gulf of Mexico. Grab bag fishing this, and the action's fine, as evidenced by this scrappy flounder. With so many varieties of fish, and Florida has literally hundreds of them, and so many ways to fish for them, the chief problem confronting the angler is mainly one of selection. And that's really not much of a problem, because no matter what he goes after, he'll probably do pretty well. Take surf fishing down around Englewood, for example. A confirmed and inveterate practitioner of the art of cast and retrieve from white sand shore is Jack Stanford, Englewood resort operator, whose enthusiasm is shared by all the little Stanfords. Pretty good rod handling for small fry. And by Sister Jean. The smaller youngsters fish with bait, while the others prefer to plug it, using the new 9M Mirror Lure, a very effective surface runner for this type of fishing. Many a surf casting enthusiast is a solitary type who plies his art alone, but it's good family fun too. And the Stanfords really work at it. This is Jack's wife, Martha. Notice the action she puts on that lure. Or maybe I should have said most of the Stanfords work at it. Young Susie takes it pretty easy. Something new and different in the way of a sit-down strike. But you can't argue with success. She did get her fish. There is one thing about sit-down fishing. The afterdeck gets a bit damp in the process. Uh-oh, looks like Dad's hooked into something pretty good. He's using light spinning tackle, of course. And that could be a big red giving him an argument out there. The ever-present Stanford cigar is sort of a good luck charm. Jack swears he couldn't even hook a fish, much less catch one, without it. And it looks like he finally has him coming his way. Or has he? With this kind of fishing, you're not always too sure whether you're fighting the fish or the surf or both. But that's it, and it's a redfish, all right. It's a nice one. This is the fish they call a channel bass up north. He ranges all the way from the Delaware Capes to below the Mexican border. But down here, he's just plain redfish. Well, what do you know? Somebody else has a fish on. Like father, like Junior. Only John Boy does it without benefit of stogie. Another redfish, sure enough. And good size, too. He may top Dad's. Stick with him, Johnny. You're doing just fine. He is a beauty. Nice going, Johnny. Never let it be said that the ladies are going to be outdone. Now it's Jean's turn. The lady means business, and so does the fish. The redfish is a tough customer. Not spectacular, he doesn't jump much, but he sure has staying power, and he uses his weight to good advantage throughout the fight. Hey, come back here, fish. But she checks that final run before it gets well started, and it's all over but the fillet. Chalk up another one for the battling Stanfords. Well, looks like the whole family's going to get in on the act. Hold tight, Ruthie. What he lacks in size, he makes up in stubbornness. And come to think of it, so does she. To keep or not to keep? That is the question. Good girl. Give him a chance to grow up a little. You don't have to keep the little ones anyway, when you've got a family-sized mess of big reds practically in the pan. And I mean, that's eaten fish. Mm-hmm. Well, and then there are those who combine their fishing pleasure with boating pleasure and water ski all the way to the fishing grounds. Oh, not the big boys. Now, he's rigged for something a little more serious. Could be after a sail out in the Gulf. But there's plenty of fishing sport to be found, too, in the lakes and rivers that abound in this beautiful Sarasota vacation area. And you'll look a long time before finding a more magnificent setting than the scenic Myakka River. Stream fishing. That's bass fishing mostly, although there are plenty of other favorites of the freshwater angler around, including panfish and even trout. But bass is the target for today, and our friends here favor artificials, the Dalton Special to be specific. And it gets results. Just lay that lure in alongside his own private lily pad, and that's where the fun begins. Pound for pound, the bass is just about the gamest customer around. He has the muscle, the broad back, and the wide tail to back up his fighting heart. So there's freshwater fishing, and there's saltwater fishing. And there's also an in-between kind of fishing, down where the fresh waters of streams like the Myakka turn brackish as they join with the briny ebb and flow of the Gulf. It's a favorite haunt of tackle smashers like, he's got one. Go get him, son. This would be young Tommy Elford, fishing side by side with Dad Earl, who, by the way, just happens to have one on, too. How about that? A double header. These waters around Lemon Bay, in the southern part of Sarasota County, are favored not only by our old friend the redfish, but by that other vicious gamester, the snook. Could be Earl and Tommy are onto either one, or both. We'll soon find out if the tackle can take it. Dad is the first one to get the situation under control. And he has, recognize him? A big, fat redfish. Come on, Earl, hold him up. Let's have a look at him. That's better. Ain't he a pretty one? Meanwhile, back at the end of that other line, things are happening too. And our boy Tom is holding his own. Tommy's put a lot of pressure on him, but he's still got a strong fish there. So it's Pop to the rescue with his trusty net. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? What a fish story that would have made. Local man roped and hog-tied by 10-pound redfish. Nice going, young fella. Today you are a fisherman. Of that you can be proud. The way of this wade fishing, work along the shoreline, casting out toward deeper water, and incidentally trying to keep from the mangroves like one of our friends just did. The bow and arrow cast is one answer to the problem. The short flick cast is another. Wading is the preferred method of working these particular waters because you cover your ground more thoroughly, and there's less chance of spooking the fish than with a boat. Uh-oh, here comes something. Judging by the action, this should be a snook. He bucks and pinwheels and fishtails like a real western bronc, with a few running broad jumps thrown in for good measure. No holds barred and no quarter asked with this baby. He hits hard, fights hard, and battles all the way home. So you hold the rod tip high and keep the pressure on him every second during those jumps and rolls and runs. And maybe, just maybe, you'll catch yourself a snook. You can recognize him for sure by the lateral stripe. It's black and prominent. Well, here we go again. Snook on that line, I'll bet. Still too far out to tell for sure. Up he comes, and there's no mistake now. He's all snook. The jumps are his calling card. When he runs, you give a little, or break the line. But the adjustable drag helps stop him before he strips the reel, usually. He's got his fish. And that's a respectable size snook. Handle with care, too, because while the snook has no teeth, those gill covers are razor sharp. That's why usually when fishing him, small, light, flexible leaders are needed to prevent cutting the line. So that's snook fishing for you. You may find him hanging around rock jetties, under mangroves, next to pilings, even far upriver, in fact in drainage canals. But now you know one place you can find him for sure, and that's Lemon Bay. That whip-like trailing dorsal unmistakably announces his presence. The presence of what is, in almost every angler's book, the greatest game fish of them all. Silver King, the tarpon. 2, 3, 4, count 'em. Because his mouth is practically solid bone, it's difficult to set the hook. In fact, the odds are about 3 to 1 against it. But if you do, look out. He just naturally explodes all over the place. Hates the taste of that steel. The tarpon is respected not only for his brute strength and tricky maneuvering, but for his staying power as well. He never seems to give up. You never consider him whipped until he's boated. And then you give him plenty of room. To make the catch official, it's up to the fisherman to bring him alongside. in position for the mate or skipper to put the gaff to him. Watch it. A green fish, still strong and not about to let himself be taken. So, back to work. That was no fault of either man, incidentally. Tarpon are just unpredictable. You can never be sure when they're ready for the gaff. In that final flurry, though, it could be he gave his all. So Silver King, the tarpon, finally comes to gaff. But only trophy fish are kept, so he'll be released and live to fight again another day. While tarpon are liable to be caught most anywhere, many right out in Sarasota Bay, a stone's throw from City Pier, that other prized Florida catch, the sailfish, is hunted only in deep water. To find him, you have to head offshore. A good seaworthy outfit is needed, either outboard or inboard, but at least an 18-footer. When the action begins, you want room to move around in. Twin screw power is good, too. It gets you there faster, and it provides that extra margin of safety in an emergency. The man doing the fishing, you should know, is veteran big leaguer Johnny Vandermeer. Okay, Johnny, let's see what kind of stuff you've got today. As usual, the first reaction of a sail when he feels the bite of that hook is to take to the air, and that's when he's at his most exciting best. Pour it to him, Johnny. You've got him swinging. Notice he's using spinning tackle. That takes a bit of doing when the game is sailfish, but Johnny's an expert. And here's one of the most thrilling sights of all sport fishing, the magnificent tail-walking performance of the great American sailfish. He just goes on and on and on till he can't go on anymore. And then, and only then, when he simply hasn't the strength left to lift his head above the surface, is the great fight over. Like the tarpon, the sailfish is never kept for eating. His flesh is oily and strongly flavored. So unless he's to be kept and mounted as a trophy, he's released. Oh, a beautiful specimen. Slim, flat muscle, full sail, and deep coloring. Congratulations, Johnny Vandermeer. You've caught yourself quite a fish. But even the perfect days must end. And as the shadows lengthen on the beaches, there's time for, well, maybe just one final battle to be won. Also, time to reflect on the joys of the sea and the sky and the sun. So if you'd know the satisfying rewards of a day outdoors in Florida's Gulf Coast area, just wet a line from bridge or beach, from charter boat or party boat or outboard cruiser. The fishing's fine. Wherever you decide to try your luck, Sarasota, Venice, Nokomis, Englewood, or the Keys, Longboat and Lido, Siesta, Casey, or Minnesota, you're sure of an experience to remember and some exciting fishing fun.